Hey there, this is the part where we're going to talk about color schemes and designs and how you can reference one to the other. For this sketchbook, there isn't a number attached to it. It's kind of just smack dab in the middle between value and color. What you're going to do is, after you've created your rainbow painting that I mentioned in the videos, um, after you paint your rainbow, then what you're going to do is you're going to use the rest of that watercolor piece of paper to have 4 quadrants to draw different shapes. And the video is going to walk you through that in a little bit here. And I'll show you step by step how to do it, but I want to talk about it first. So now that you have some skills to mix paint, I want you to think about different color schemes and how they work. And again, I do explain those later on in the video. On the watercolor paper, you're going to split your 4 quadrants after you have the area that you did your rainbow on. And then inside of one of the quadrants, you're going to draw 9 simple shapes, and you'll see an example of that. I do want you to have at least 2 that are organic and at least 4 that are geometric. Okay. Make sure that they all fit nicely with breathing room around them when you're drawing them up. And then I want you to duplicate them in all 4 quadrants. And you'll see what that looks like in the video later on. So I want you to label each complementary, which is 2 colors, analogous, you'll do 3 or more, monochromatic, which is just 1 color, any color you like, plus tint and shade, white and black, and then wild, which is any kind of combination that you like. Then what you're going to do is you're going to paint in all of the shapes on all 4 quadrants with their respective color schemes. So 1 quadrant will be complementary, 1 will be analogous, so on and so forth. So you do have 9 shapes in each quadrant that you draw out. However, after they're all dry and you cut them out carefully, what you're going to do is you're going to select 7 to 9 of them. So if 2 of the shapes you ended up just not liking, then you can get rid of them. But all of the designs have to be identical. They have to look exactly like each other. So if I had drawn a kidney shape here for all of my shapes, and I just decided I didn't like it after I was done coloring everything in, I don't need to use it, but I do need to use at least 7 pieces. Like here I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you'll also notice that there are not any organic shapes here. So this person, their 2 organic shapes that they had made, they decided in the end that they didn't like them and it didn't work around with the layout that they wanted. So I do recommend that you cut them all out first and then move them around to see how you like. I also recommend that when you're drawing your shapes out, that you don't think ahead to the end result. You just draw shapes. And then what you're going to do is you'll rearrange them until they look nice. So just focus on whatever shapes you want. Don't focus on the design until way after they're painted, dried, and cut out. Okay. So once you're satisfied with that, after you've made your design toward the end, then go ahead and glue it. Okay. Make sure that after it dries, if there's any areas that are kind of lifting up, that you add more glue. Pay attention to your craft so these don't fall apart. And it will take time to glue. And you'll want to use a liquid glue for this. Okay. Let's see. Another thing too, this example, never mind my hands taking the photograph, the shadow right through here. Try to ignore that. Do as I say, not as I do. But your end result should end up looking like this in the binder. And you will label, I'll zoom in a little bit. You are going to label each of them so we know exactly what color scheme it is. Like this one is complementary, this one is analogous, this one is the wild card, which looks like a grayish blue and a red with a little bit of monochromatic with the red going on, but then we have this wild of blue-ish gray. And then right through here, we do have a legitimate monochromatic. So you can also see how these shapes are layered over on top of each other. You can have a random shape that is floating off, but it is still part of the design. So they don't all have to necessarily touch. Like the square right here is exactly what I'm talking about because it doesn't touch anything and it doesn't overlap, but everything else does. So whichever way you want to do it, it's totally up to you as long as you are staying within those assignment parameters. And I do want you to try to have fun with this. So if you do have any questions, please let me know. And now I'm going to turn it over to a video of me working on this. Okay, now the next step is you are going to have that piece of your watercolor paper in 4 quadrants. And the reason why is because we're going to draw shapes on these quadrants. Kind of like this. So you need the same shapes 4 times over. So if I drew this here, I would draw the same exact thing here, here, and here. So I would have 4 copies of this. Now, when you get to the organic shapes, those are going to be kind of difficult to replicate, and that's totally fine. Okay, these I used a ruler for, so it might be a little bit easier to keep them consistent. Or the circle, I just used a pencil sharpener to trace for the circle. So what I want you to do is I want you to have 2 organic shapes at least. And I want you to have at least 5 geometric shapes. Okay, so we want at least 2 organic and at least 5 geometric. But I want you to do a total of 9. So you can choose if you want to do more of the organic or more of the geometric. But I want you to have 9 shapes total, at least 2 of them are organic, and at least 5 of them are geometric. Okay. And again, like I said, you're going to draw on all 4 quadrants. And the reason why is because you are going to come up with 4 different color schemes. And one of them, I want you to do complementary. One of them is going to be monochromatic. One will be analogous. And then one will be a wild card, which is whatever the heck you want. So analogous, if you remember, that means that on the color wheel, we're looking for colors that are next to each other. So I want you to use at least 3 colors for analogous colors. 4 can be acceptable, like these 4 right here. Those are all analogous, but I want you to do at least 3. Okay. So those are the ones that are next to each other on the color wheel. Your complementary colors are the ones that are directly across from each other on the color wheel. So if you're looking at the color wheel, at the top is yellow and at the very bottom is purple. Okay. So look, this is my purple. So this yellow and this purple, these 2 together could be complementary. Okay. So that means that you would color all of these like that would be purple, yellow, purple, yellow, purple, yellow, purple, so on and so forth. Other colors that are directly across from each other on the color wheel, we have red and green. Okay. So these 2 colors right next to each other. So I could do complementary, that's red and green. And those will be the only colors that you color these shapes in for one of your quadrants. And then when we're talking about monochromatic, that means you choose 1 color, just 1. And then you add white to some of it to make like a pink. And then you add black to some of it to make a dark red or like a maroon or burgundy, closer to that. So the idea with monochromatic is 1 color plus tint and shade. Tint is white, shade is black. Okay, so then that way you can see how white and black affect a pigment. So I'm actually going to choose red for my monochromatic, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to show you how to do that on this one, because it's already drawn out. And again, red is my color for monochromatic. So hopefully you can handle on your own what green and red look like, if that's what you choose for complementary, or what you choose for your analogous, or what you choose for your wild card. Like my wild card, I would probably choose purple and green and yellow, because I love that color scheme. And it doesn't really fall into, it's not analogous, it's not complementary, it's not monochromatic, it's just whatever. It's 3 colors that I picked off the color wheel I like together. So within that, I am going to go ahead and get some red. All right, here we go. And I'm going to get a little bit of white and a little bit of black, because I need tint and shade. There we go. Starting to run out of my black. Okay. So I'm going to decide, and this is actually where a smaller brush is going to come handy, because my shapes are a little bit small. And you don't have to worry about staying inside of the lines, because we're going to cut these out. So I'm actually going to, I can still see the pencil mark through it. I'm actually going to have fun with going outside of the lines on these. And I'm going to choose just 3 of these to paint red. And I'm going to want to go over these again when it's a little bit dry so that I don't see streaks. And so it's even. I want even color, remember? Pretty good, actually. Still going to go over it again. Okay. And then I'm cleaning my brush out a little bit just because it's got a lot of paint loaded on it. And I'm going to move some of this red here. I'm going to move some of this red over here. And that's because I want to add white to that part and I want to add black to that part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and grab a little bit of white. I'm going to mix, mix, mix. And it's already starting to turn a little pinkish. And I like what it's looking like. It's very subtle. Maybe it's a little too subtle after I start painting it next to it. So I've got that influence. I've got my context. There we go. Oh crap, I added a little bit of black, so I'm moving away from it because I don't want to mix any black into this. A little bit more white. Okay, that's pink. Nobody's going to tell me otherwise. It's light pink. Okay, and again, we don't want our paintbrush too loaded up. I'm cleaning it off because it had too much paint on it. And it was influencing the pink that I'm trying to get solid. Okay, perfect. I'm going to paint over this. Yeah, that's what I want. I want this Pepto-Bismol pink. All right. And I'm going to paint a couple of these with that Pepto-Bismol. You can, if it's like, if you're super organized in your visuals, then you can try to paint within the line. But like I said, we're going to cut these out and I can still see the pencil marks. So that way I know the very edges of them are going to be nice and even and they're going to be filled in pretty well. And that makes me happy. Okay, so I'm going to paint this one as well. And I am going to say I have 3 shapes left. So what I want to do is I need to get some darker colors too. So I need to get shades. So I need to remember that. I'm going to reserve these 2 to put the black into the red. And then this one right here, I actually want to add even more white to. I want to make a lighter pink. So it's close to white. And we're just going to have 1. And word of the day, that's going to be an anomaly. And what anomaly means is, or anomalous, what that means is there is something that is different from the rest. And there's only one of them that's different from the rest. Okay, so it's like a Lone Ranger of my baby pink. This is not my favorite color. I don't know why I chose that, but here we are. Okay, so that is lighter. So you can already see how this is starting to work with the color scheme, with it being monochromatic. Mono means 1, chromatic means color. And so I'm using 1 color plus white plus black. We don't consider black a color. We don't consider white a color. Those are values, which we already went through and did a value scale. Okay, now I'm going to add some black, just a little bit, to this red, because black goes a long way, a very long way. Okay, yes, that's looking like maroon. So it's looking oddly like the purple-ish that we tried to mix. And I'm going to put this here on this circle. And again, this is, I'm going to want to dry and then paint over. Now, the darker you get, the harder it is to see through to the pencil marks. So do keep that in mind, depending on what colors you're using or how dark you're making them. And I lied. I said I wanted to do both of these the same, but I think it might add more dynamics if I add even more black and do an even darker one. But don't make it black because then it's black. It's not dark red anymore. But you can go right on that line. You can push it. Okay. And I did. I pushed it. Not too much different. I can still see my pencil marks. It might be hard to see on the camera, but all right. So this is monochromatic. And like I said, the idea many times, we're going to cut these shapes out and then we're going to make designs. So you should have the same exact shapes, the same amount, 4 times over with 4 different color schemes.